Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the panel what we have right now, India's AI Leap, Talent, Innovation and Impact. My name is Vishal Shah. I am a deals partner with PwC and glad to be here moderating this session with our esteemed panelists. What makes India particularly interesting in this moment is that we sit at an intersection of several powerful structural advantages. We have one of the largest developer ecosystems in the world, a strong technology services and startup ecosystem, and a rapidly digitizing economy that is generating massive amounts of data across sectors, be it financial services, healthcare, consumer, or manufacturing. For this conversation today, we have a mix of perspectives on stage. We have investors backing companies at early stages, capital providers helping them scale, sector specialists looking at how AI is transforming industries, and founders actually building AI platforms for enterprise use. Together, this gives us a 360-degree view of the AI ecosystem, from innovation to adoption to capital deployment, which should really make very insightful for our discussion. Before we dive into the discussion, let me briefly introduce our panelists who bring together perspectives from AI entrepreneurship, venture capital, private equity, venture debt, and sector-focused investing. This is not in any particular order. So we have Nikhil Sahni, founder and CEO of Bind, a Gen AI platform that helps financial institutions automate complex workflows and unlock insights from large volumes of data. Next, we have Ritesh Chandra, who is a managing partner at Avendus Future Leaders Fund, which focuses on investing in high-growth businesses across sectors. We also have Ritu Verma, co-founder and managing partner at Ankur Capital, a venture capital firm that focuses on backing deep tech and science-led startups. Joining us well is Rahul Agarwal, partner at HealthTech, a healthcare-focused venture fund investing in innovative healthcare and digital health companies. And finally, we have Apurva Sharma, managing partner at Stride Ventures, one of India's leading venture debt funds that provides growth capital to high-growth startups across sectors such as fintech, consumer, and SaaS. So let me start with framing a broad question for the panel as we talk about this very interesting topic. When we talk of India's AI opportunity, where do we believe the country's true structural advantage lies? We keep on hearing a lot of stuff about India, where India stands on the AI journey. But as you think about it, as investors, as entrepreneurs, as founders, where do you think the real advantage lies for India? And I think this is a question which maybe I would let anyone wants to volunteer first to sort of take a stab at.
Look, it's difficult to put a exact, put your finger on where we'll land up. But I think one of the things that we're seeing certainly develop in the market is application-led development on AI, which is very user-specific. So one of the things that India has excelled in the past and continues to do so is developing verticalized solutions using agentic platforms. So we're seeing a number of companies who are targeting niche areas in application development. The activity on the LLM side is there, but not very aggressive. I mean, given the fact that it's a deep pockets business. But the number of applications that we are seeing on vertical basis is one. The second area that we are seeing tremendous amount of activity is on the business to government side. The government is extremely active in developing customized AI solutions, which are piggybacking to deliver last mile services. And I suspect in the next 3 to 6 months, you'll see some of these initiatives roll out, on the backbone of which you will see further application development by private entrepreneurs.
Okay. So I think listening to you, Ritesh, I think it gives some encouragement, in terms of where India stands.
So I think I can add a little bit of perspective there from a founder's standpoint. I spent about 8 years in the US, moved back a little over a year ago to start the company. And that was a deliberate decision. I had my visa and everything, so I didn't get kicked out. But really the driving factor for that decision was that there was a new opportunity set that was emerging in the Indian tech ecosystem. We've traditionally been a very strong IT services economy, not as much on the product side or on the application side. But what we're seeing is that enterprises who are purchasing products are now looking for outcomes, not simply products that they can buy off the shelf and train their employees on. And so our consultative mindset, something that we've sort of inculcated and cultured over time, that's really a strong advantage I think that India has beyond the usual, cheaper talent, access to the youth and demographic advantages. So I think that's something that we're very personally excited about, where we can help businesses and enterprises in a consultative manner to deliver outcomes. And AI is something that lines up very well with that thesis.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Nikhil. And I think that is what, we were catching up before the session. I think India has to really think about the advantages which India has, whether it's a demographic, whether it is the data sets, and I think that's where I think we can really make a difference. That leads to my next question. When we think about, like each one of you operates in a different part of an ecosystem, whether it's a startup ecosystem, whether it is building AI native platforms, focusing on healthcare innovation, etc., right? So from each one of your vantage points, where you see most meaningful AI-driven opportunities emerging within your respective sectors. As an investor, obviously, you will be looking at a few of them. So how do you really see what specific themes and opportunities are emerging within your sectors?
Vishal, sorry, go ahead.
I think I can start because most of the panel is on equity side. And since I'm representing debt almost always gets sidelined when it comes to AI innovation, and naturally so, because there's so much uncertainty, so much disruption, the velocity at which things are changing is so high that obviously it doesn't fit the risk appetite for debt, right? But I think biggest opportunity for debt is the infrastructure, is the compute, the GPUs, the data centers, power, real estate, all of that. And that is a very big opportunity for private credit. Just, in the previous session when, we were looking at the Preqin data, private credit, private debt in the full year would be, say, 20 billion. But if you look at, the NASA deal that happened as a case study, NASA raised about $1.2 billion, of which 600 million was purely equity by Blackstone. Another 600 million is earmarked as debt. So 1:1 has become the benchmark for infrastructure for AI, data centers, GPUs, etc. And in their Blackstone report, they've also said that currently it's about 20,000 GPUs, but it needs to reach about 2 million in the next, say, 2-3 years. Even by that math, say $30,000 per GPU, it comes to about, say, $8 billion, and half of that is debt. $80 billion, so half of that is debt. So $40 billion worth of opportunity getting added to that 20 billion per annum deployment. So it's a very big project financing kind of, target opportunity that we have as debt providers. And yeah, I just wanted to point that I know there are a bunch of interesting things which are happening, but given that as debt, you can't have that high risk appetite. So we will come only once there are, like fixed signed contracts with enterprise customers, predictable revenue, etc. Not really in it for the LLM play right now. But yes, I just thought that I'll start and hand it over to the equity champions.
If I may add to your first question, I think the advantage lies all over. Right, on all of those factors that you mentioned. And the biggest thing is, I think, the market that we sit on, right? So we have such varied, such different markets where I think there's a lot of, AI can come in and leapfrog those markets. So you see a lot of that happening where it's being leveraged, whether it's on the application layer, whether it's sort of on the infra layer. I think what you'll also see, so for example, we have people who have moved back to India because they think that leveraging their solution from the India market perspective gives them an opportunity for, you're not sitting here, just competing with hyperscalers. You're developing business models that are valid for, more than half the world, essentially, and India provides a great place to do that. Similarly, you'll see this on the data side, right? So as of now, it is still cheaper to collect data in India. Like we've seen from robotics companies to pharma companies, to all sorts of companies looking to leverage data from India. The challenge, of course, is structuring it. It's not easily available, but that challenge is elsewhere as well. So you are using India as a base to sort of build and feed into these models, right? So we were just looking at a robotics company that's looking at, training robots, like humanoids actually, and using India shop floors and saying this is the messy environment that I need in order to be collecting that data to train robots, right? And last but not the least is the talent. So for example, a third of, all chip talent is Indian at the end, right? And so they are seeing this as an advantage and starting chip companies in India, right? Of course, we have favorable government policies, et cetera, now to help that industry as well. But, these people are coming off AMD, they're coming off Grok, they're coming off Intel, they're coming off, you name it, 15, 20 years, and saying, look, the world's coalescing around NVIDIA, but there is all of these other kind of chips that we're going to need. And, 3 stacks here of whether I'm, cutting edge chips to India's specific kind of chips, inference chips, so a whole bunch of them. So I would not discount the Indian talent, and I'm calling this a global Indian talent that is now seeing India as an opportunity to sort of build from. So I think all those 3 things help us with AI, basically.
Sure. No, and I agree. I think what Apurva said also in terms of infrastructure and what Ritu you said, I think enablement from a talent standpoint and infrastructure, I think those are great enablers for India, and that's where I think India can really make a difference. Rahul,
so
so
if I can add the healthcare perspective to it, agree that, in India, it's, from a talent perspective, from a, ability to run pilots while you're doing engineering on these models, ability to run low-cost pilots, I think that's much better in India compared to many other markets. And in healthcare, where we're seeing specific work happening, is on 2 ends, right? So maybe I'll give a 2x2 view. So one is on the clinical decision-making. I think a lot of adoption in AI that we are seeing. I think healthcare started a bit late compared to few other industries, but catching up really fast. Various estimates that now about 30 to 40% clinicians are using AI assistance in aiding clinical decisions. This is both in healthcare settings, even in pharma on the early stage drug discovery side, hit, lead identification, optimization, all of that. So that's on the clinical side. In healthcare, we see that happening on, let's say, remote patient monitoring tools, which helps in decision-making, or AI radiology, AI mental health, AI skincare models, which help in clinical decision-making. Second is solving a lot of administrative workflows within healthcare facilities, within pharma workflows, right? On the healthcare side, solving for workflows within hospitals, administrative tasks, taking load off our overworked clinicians, nurses, paramedics. A lot of those tools are finding great adoption in India, and we're seeing sustainable, scaled-up models getting built over there. On the pharma side, when you get past the IND stage or the drug, you get into the administrative task of drug discovery or drug development, on clinical trials, on writing your regulatory submissions, a lot of stuff is happening over there where AI can help crunch costs and timelines. So I think that is where we see a lot of work happening and very interesting scaled up models getting built.
So if the statistic, like you said, 40% clinicians are using AI for diagnostics.
Some estimates, yeah.
Roughly, yeah.
Right.
But that's quite encouraging to hear that, right? I thought, as in my understanding, the number was much lower, but that's good to hear. It's 40%, so we are on the right track then, in that sense. So maybe a question for you, Rahul, just continuing from where you said, that when you're now evaluating health tech startups and who position themselves as AI-driven, right? What distinguishes truly, let's say, an AI business from one that simply is layering AI on top of the existing product? So there are a lot of businesses where we see that they are layering on AI and they are not genuinely AI-first businesses, right? So how would you differentiate between the two of them when making an investment decision?
Yes, so see, maybe I'll just give examples, right, rather than too much theory. So we've invested in a couple of companies. In fact, 3 companies, two are more B2, B2C models, and one is more B2C. So an AI radiology company, which is now counted amongst top 2, 3 globally. So they built AI modules based in Mumbai. They built AI modules to read chest X-ray, CT scans, to detect tuberculosis, lung cancers ahead of time, and also radiologists are in short supply. So very use cases, right? So built out of Mumbai, now have 30 plus US FDA approved modules to do that, being adopted in US, in Europe, in Asia, in sub-Saharan Africa, right? So pretty powerful model. And they have built these modules grounds up, trained on data not only in India but globally, and over 1 billion images which have been used to train these AI models, right? And now I found US FDA validation. Another one is an AI mental health company, again considered, by various studies, most clinically safe AI mental health model, one of the most clinically safe AI mental health models. Again, millions of conversations have been used to train their AI, both in India and globally, being adopted by very, I would say, accomplished healthcare systems in the world. NHS UK, Singapore government, US insurance and pharma companies are using them. They again have a US FDA approval software as a medical device. So I think very heartening to see that companies out of India, and to one point which you raised earlier, do we have the ability to build companies which are finding global acclaim and being counted amongst the top global companies doing that? Yes. It will, see, as Ritesh had also said, right, this will be application layers and very specific use cases, right? So I think seeing work over there, and then D2C AI skincare, where companies are doing really good work. So yes, there are models getting built. How do we differentiate between, so again, as I said, these 2 examples, right? Something which is very unique, solves a very relevant use case. The first one, lack of radiologists, especially in emerging markets, especially in the West as well, where waiting time for CT scans, X-rays could be 1 or 2 months, and then reporting timelines could be another month. How can you crunch those? So where is the use case and what can you build around it?
I think one connected question, and which I keep on hearing in some situations, is that in terms of, do you see any risk on personal data? Because healthcare is more sensitive for individuals and for the personal data, right? So do you see that as any risk when we talk of AI for healthcare businesses?
Yes, of course, it is a risk if, but there are data protection laws around it. And in healthcare, nothing gets adopted without validation of healthcare systems and clinical facilities. These are not D2C models where anyone can just start interacting. So there are checkpoints in place. And again, it's then up to the investors. If I speak from an investor's standpoint, how do you diligence what you're investing in? What are the data protection and the clinical guardrails around it? But I think most relevant and I would say accomplished healthcare systems, they have very strong guardrails around it.
So we are basically taking care of that, is what you're saying effectively. Okay.
So Vishal, one thing I wanted to add there, right, in terms of data privacy and risk, given that we serve regulated sector as well in financial services, risk is really the opportunity set here, right, where what you're actually solving for as a company is the trust layer, the governance, the management of that data. How are you convincing those clients that you're HIPAA compliant or you're SEBI compliant, right? Productizing that in a way that builds trust in the enterprise, because these are not short sales cycles. There's a lot of diligence that is done not by your investor, but your customer, right? Maybe deeper than maybe your investor even goes on before they let any PII or any financials sort of enter the system. And so the job of startups like ours and many others in healthcare and other regulated sectors is to solve for this complexity and solve for this and use it as an opportunity set to build solutions that develop trust in the enterprise that you're selling to. So yeah.
No, I agree. As in that's as relevant for other sectors, particularly even financial services, because where you're using a lot of fiduciary data from clients. So Nikhil, just staying on to you, from your experience working with banks, financial services so far, I think, and you said in the US as well as in India, right? Where do you, like from an India standpoint, where are you seeing the most immediate real world value of AI when you look at, let's say, your sector particularly?
We work with private equity funds, investment banks, equity research houses. Where we're seeing a lot of appetite is net new areas of problems that were previously not being solved for by pre-existing software. It's almost like work that was being done by real people at these firms that was really grunt work and was sort of either constraining their capacity to expand the business, or really that was the limiting factor for their core top-line revenue item, right? And so for us, if you take an equity research firm, for example, if you have 35 analysts covering about 500 stocks, you can't really expand coverage beyond that and still be very diligent about, updating your models, writing a research note, sending out first takes in the morning. And so bringing AI automation to those mid-office and front-office processes and helping those businesses drive their own top line, that is, I think, where we've seen a lot of excitement from BFSI that traditionally maybe wasn't there. And this is, they have their preset IT budgets and stuff which are more for operational back office type operations. But what we're seeing now is they're willing to unlock labor budgets and say, look, if this helps our team of 35 analysts cover 100 more names and put out higher quality information or hyper-personalized news we're sending to our clients on the buy side, that's completely worth it and something that we've seen a lot of appetite for, provided you have the right product. And so the bar for product is extremely high, but the appetite for solutions like that is equally high. So I think there's a large opportunity set there.
So I think a common question which always comes up when we talk of AI is that what's happening to jobs across, right? And I think what you're saying is that don't look at it as whether people at analyst level or junior level lose jobs. Rather, you make them more productive and make them work on different things and expanding your business.
Yeah, initially when the AI thing was starting, we were looking at operational efficiency. How can you help margins? How can you help efficiency of employees? But I think the more exciting part for us now has become lately, how can you actually help our clients' business flourish and grow and drive real revenue value rather than just margin value? Because ultimately, everybody wants to do more with the same team. So it's very rare that I've had a conversation with a business leader where they've said, look, I'm trying to fire these 30 guys. Can you please give me an AI tool that solves this? It's like, no, how can I get more money per employee that I'm hiring, right? And so that perspective shift has started to come in. At least in the BFSI space, I'm not seeing that sort of mindset of, let's cut jobs, and it's more expansionist.
Sure. Ritesh, moving on to you, from a private equity perspective, you are evaluating a lot of companies who are at late stage growth and scaled up in operations, right? As you are seeing AI increasingly becoming a value, are you seeing AI increasingly becoming a value creation lever for your portfolio companies, or whether, through operational efficiencies, automation, or they are creating new digital capabilities? As in, how do you see that? That's question one. And, when you are evaluating the companies today versus, let's say, what you did maybe 3 years or 4 years back, right? What is the lens you are changing now when you are evaluating before making an investment decision?
So, okay, to be very honest, everybody and their grandmother who comes to us says they are using AI. Okay? It has become a selling point. So one has to be extremely careful as an investor as to what is the actual use. If he's using ChatGPT like Google and he comes and tells me he's using AI, one has to do a deep dive. So there's hardly any company who comes across sectors to us who doesn't tell us that they have got some form of AI or not. So as an investor, the first rule is be careful, right? Because you know what he's selling. What are we seeing? I think, the reality is it's transcending across sectors, right? Whether it's consumer D2C sectors, or Raul spoke about healthcare, manufacturing, it's transcending all sectors. What we are more focused about is the ability of the platform to add incremental revenue or create some efficiencies, right? Until that is tangible to us, as an investor, frankly, it's good to have, but hey, it doesn't move my life. I need to see tangible outcomes which are coming about. So for example, we have a drug discovery business in our portfolio, which is extensively using, they've minimized their cycle time for drug discovery by nearly 3 months. Okay? And that's super efficient. We have a D2C business in our portfolio which is using it for dynamic pricing. And believe it or not, the pricing changes over 100,000 times in a day, depending on what the demand at that point in time is geographically. That's all being done. That's revenue optimization, right? We've got companies who are using AI in manufacturing, new material synthesis, standardizing the capacity utilization, minimizing defects, minimizing wastages, right? Even if you can bring a 2% reduction in wastage cost down, it flows to the bottom line. That's tangible for me. I am extremely susceptible to, I'm extremely careful about folks coming and, with all due respect, copying something from ChatGPT and telling me this is what they're doing. Okay? That doesn't work, yaar. I really need to see, tangible outputs come through. And for us, that's super critical. So in terms of adoption, we are seeing, globally, and this is a trend globally, not alone in India. Funnily, consumer companies are the first to adopt. Okay? Manufacturing comes second, financial services comes third, healthcare comes fourth, in terms of order of priority, in terms of adoption. I think India is going to follow the same path, clearly. But, as an investor, if you ask me, I'm not betting the house on any company who walks through my doors and says he's using AI.
So if I just flip the question, you spoke about whether you really take a bet on a promoter who says that, I'm going to grow 3x, 4x, right? If I just flip the question and say that, let's say, what's the risk that the business is getting disrupted from an AI standpoint? As in, for the businesses you have been seeing, as in, have you seen, real life examples where you can talk about, let's say, some business came to you and then you thought that this is getting disrupted through AI and hence you would not really go ahead and invest?
See, to be very honest, and I've had a chat globally with folks as well. I think a lot of people are still shooting in the dark in terms of how AI will disrupt and what businesses will it disrupt. I think it will be juvenile for us to think that companies are not seeing the writing on the wall and they're not adapting. Okay? Everybody is aware of what's happening and everybody is adapting. Now, what shape and form it's going to take, actually, frankly, candidly, from all my discussions, nobody even globally has a firm view of it. People have views, people have perspectives, but nobody knows for sure how it's going to pan out. So the gut call you've got to take, and it's a more heuristic call that you've got to take. The heuristic call you've got to take is that what is the level of disruption? Is the entrepreneur geared for that disruption? Is he actually reading the writing on the wall and doing something about it? Okay? That's what focus is. Now, how fast that level of disruption is going to be, will a business model go out of windows? See, some business models are very simple, right? Coding is a dead business now. Okay, that's a given, right? But let's take healthcare, for example. Is revenue cycle management a dead business because AI is going to disrupt it? I don't think so, right? But people are talking on those lines. AI can do everything that a human does? Yes, it can, but there are other implications that you've got to think about. So I don't think the answer is a binary answer. You have to take a call on, theoretically every industry can be disrupted, right? You have to take a call on, is the entrepreneur up to speed with what are the developments? Is he thinking about it, right? And then, like I said, honestly, at this point in time, it's a more heuristic call about, yes, this business may be disrupted, but the entrepreneur will be at the top of the curve when it gets disrupted.
No, and I agree with you, Ritesh, because, you mentioned about healthcare, tech companies, RCM companies, right? I think while everybody talks about the AI impact on a lot of these businesses, but then we saw, I think, last 18 months, billion-dollar deals happening in that sector, right? So I think I agree with you. There's no binary answer, a yes or a no. So completely aligned on that. Apurva, from your perspective, when you spoke about the example which you gave, right? So from a India standpoint, as in when you're looking at debt for your portfolio or for your evaluation, Will it be, will it be more on the infrastructure side, like the example which you gave, or you believe that it can also be in the mainstream, right? Where we are competing with, let's say, a company in the US, AI company in the US, in China. Where do you really see the, the investable opportunity in India?
I think everything, but it's a matter of when, right? So obviously the first, given the project financing nature of the infrastructure, GPU, data center play, it becomes very, plain vanilla that you should take at least 50% debt. It's a depreciating asset. Everybody knows you can't dilute equity for those reasons. You have to keep replenishing it every few years, right? So that is a given. But it's not that, given that we are a venture debt fund, we definitely, want to look at companies which are disrupting in some way. What I meant was, obviously today, if somebody in India is trying to work on a LLM, will we do it? Probably not. But somebody who's working on more, say, an application, and they've already, like AI platforms, like E2E network, etc. There are a bunch of companies who have already figured out what kind of platform play they are providing in MLOps, cloud, etc. They have contracts which are established. They are long-term in nature. We can definitely discount them. There is debt use case there. So yeah, I think it's a matter of how quickly people adapt to it. The technology becomes mainstream. And as soon as they do, then of course debt finds a use case. So currently it's all layered, but of course infrastructure is the most given kind of debt use case there is.
So what you're saying is that there's no thematic segregation in terms of where you would put your money, right? I think it depends upon the respective stage of evolution of a particular company, whether it is into the mainstream or whether it's into the infrastructure.
And honestly, in the next 5 years, there might not be a separate classification of AI companies. All companies would be using AI in some form or manner. We've discussed the application in financial services, healthcare, government, all manufacturing, consumer companies, different kind of things. A lot of our companies today are already using AI. Whether it's, say, Perfios, it's a very well-known company, right? They've been using AI for claim identification, fraud detection, and they keep improvising. Exotel for automated customer management. So we do invest in them, right? Because they're using AI for their business, which is a predictable, recurring revenue kind of business. So yeah, I think in the next 5 odd years in India, they will not, I don't think we'll be discussing AI-specific companies. Every company would be using AI in some form or manner.
Got it. Ritu, coming on to you, I think I'll pick up the last topic. I can see the clock there. I don't know how much more time we have. Okay, that's a minute. Okay, so maybe I'll take up the last question. Ritu, starting with you, right? So while we spoke about a lot of opportunities in AI, where India is, right? If we talk about challenges and enablers, so, when we talk of AI adoption, it comes with several challenges, right? So across, let's say, the sectors which you evaluate or you look at investing, what are some of the key barriers which is slowing down the AI adoption today? And from a broader ecosystem perspective, when you think of policy, infrastructure, regulatory enablers, what would you think India needs?
Yeah, so I think, I'm with Apurva that, I don't think at the application layer, I think it's just a given. I don't know a single company that doesn't use it, right? So the question is, how do you differentiate is who's using it and who's using it better and extracting more value for it? And I think it's not even 5 years. In a couple of years, we don't have this discussion. So for us at Ankur, we're much more interested and excited about the infrastructure layer, right? Because at the end of the day, today, everybody using this as an application layer, that money goes back to a model, one of these hyperscalers or whoever who essentially is going to squeeze you at the end of this app layer unless there is other parts of how you're going to be driving revenue. So I think, from the India context, it is important to think about that infrastructure level. And that's really where I think the government has stepped up, and I think there is more policy work to be done to step up. So for example, chips, an absolutely obvious need, right? And yes, there's a lot of incentive right now to sort of make replacement chips. But, what about the chips that are actually going to be running all these LLMs on it? What about the LLMs that are not massive and they're the new age LLMs that are sort of coming out that, actually we would in-house and use in India for the use cases that we would have, versus it just all going to seven companies that are just pulling it, sucking it all out, right? Energy, right? A huge thing, right? Because with all the data centers, et cetera, we're going to need all of that. And so, again, I think we think of AI as, just ChatGPT or something like that. But actually, the use cases for you to use AI at the intersection of hardware development, whether it's new drugs, whether it's new materials, whether it's new forms of energy that you're managing using AI, I think that, again, is AI playing into an infrastructure level, and it has the ability to change the game for India. So any policies, any demand, right, which is extremely essential, and I know that the government is thinking about creating in-house demand so that startups get the chance to actually, put a product out, get paid for it, and get validated by a reputable customer, is absolutely important. So we don't just focus on, hey, I'm a consumer app and I can use an AI agent and talk to my customer, but we as a country focus on the infra layer here, which means every consumer company uses this infra, and for us to be able to invest and enable that infra, I think is really what is the opportunity that we sort of sit on here.
Completely agree with that. And Rahul, I think just finally, from your perspective, given healthcare is quite, from an AI standpoint, I think quite sensitive and quite relevant sector from an India standpoint, right? Do you see any challenges, any policy-driven regulatory framework which can enable this more than what it is today?
No, I don't think so. There's any, see, on data protection, there are already laws, right? That's a topic you already touched. I think the best enabler is if the government can channelize investments. I think with the new RDI fund and such initiatives, I'm sure, while it's like, I don't think that's focused at a very, very early stage. Probably it's TRL 4+. But, those sort of enablers, and, I really don't think that there is anything inhibiting from a policy or a governmental action standpoint. I think healthcare is I would say, appropriately regulated sector, and that's the way it should be. And I think we have enough talent and, those advantages we've spoken about where, good models will keep getting built. So nothing more, I think just maybe early stage investment channelization so that, and some patient capital where, unlike the West, here investors look for early gratification on, evidence of commercial success, evidence of resource, capital efficiency in the models which are getting built, and early commercial success. So a bit more patient capital channelization from there, and that is where I think, government can do a little bit. I think regulation-wise, it's a very appropriately regulated sector.
So good to hear that. I think that there's no major roadblocks, and I think you see enough enablers for really us to achieve where we want to be.
Yes, there are enough enablers here.
Okay, perfect. No, so maybe I'll put a last question to the panel, a quick fire one, right? As in, I read a lot of statistics, and one of them said that India will add $500 billion over the next 10 years from an AI, as in by AI adoption and growing, etc. Right? So each one of you, as in, do you believe one that whether we will achieve that, and if yes, what is one thing which we really need to do differently than what we are doing today?
So yes, I think of course, given all the views that we've had and AI's wide application across almost all the sectors, I think there's definitely the potential. As I said, I think, there needs to be more investment in and more patient capital in, I would not say foundational model building, but more patient capital in where different use cases are allowed to be built. Patient capital, allow more time for experimentation, don't look for very early gratification on commercial success, capital efficiency in building these, because in West, it is otherwise. And that is where, a bigger success stories probably come out.
Sure. Ritesh, what do you think about this?
Sure. I don't think I can put a number to it because like everybody else said, adoption is everywhere, right? But, I think it's a given. It's inevitable. Now, the question is how fast can you adopt? and how nimble are the entrepreneurs to do it. As simple as that.
So as an investor, you're not worried. You think so far we are on the right track?
Yeah, I think, the thing is, you're literally running to stand still.
Yeah.
You just have to run harder. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the way the technology is moving.
Absolutely.
So if you're not running fast enough, you're going to be thrown off.
Okay, absolutely. Nikhil, what do you think?
Yeah, so again, it's hard to put a number on it, but I have a more strategic view here where I think we can play this right and we can play it wrong, and that can be plus $500 billion or minus $500 billion, right? And so in terms of how companies are adopting AI, obviously that's a big driver of the kind of output we're going to see, right, and the kind of value creation that we're going to see. But what AI does is it adds strategic and operational leverage to a company, right? And like financial leverage, leverage goes in both directions, and it's great when it's going positively, but when it unrolls, it can be pretty bad. So I think strategically, if the entrepreneurs in the country are well informed, they're making the right calls, investors are keeping them in check, and I think we should see some very meaningful value creation because everything is lined up for us to succeed.
Absolutely. Ritu, what do you think? What's your verdict?
I think, I'm pretty sure there'll be gains. I don't know an exact number to it, but I think we need more investment, and we need more investment up front, right? So, I mean, if we want to become a chip manufacturer here, right, we can't say, okay, I'm going to do a 28 nanometer node and the world's moving to 3 nanometers. So we need the ecosystem and the environment to get created faster for people to develop these things faster versus saying, I'm going to try to get one slot in Taiwan, which I have no, so that ecosystem and money going into that ecosystem as a enabler, I think is very critical to why half many more trillions. So
Sure.
Otherwise we'll lose that.
Sure,
Right.
sure. And as an investor, I'm sure that you would sort of honor the bet. Apurva, what do you think?
Similar views. I mean, I'm no one to put a number. I'm sure we'll grow multifold. But yes, I think the only thing that will differentiate how far and how meaningful we are in the whole AI game is deep, patient capital. A little bit of delayed gratification, because otherwise we're just going to copy what is already made and try to, just commercialize it faster.
Got it, okay. So I think the verdict coming out of the panel is that, we don't really see any roadblocks, any major challenges the way the adoption across different sectors are in India right now. Whether we look at as in from a lens of an investor, there's no binary yes or no, because we see a lot of businesses, we hear a lot of businesses saying that this is getting disrupted by AI, so one would not bet into it, etc. Right? I think it's more evaluated a case-to-case scenario, right? So I think we are on a right track, and I'm sure, I think whether $500 billion or we are in the right track, and I think we are moving ahead in the right direction from an India standpoint. I'm not sure if we have any time left for any audience questions on this. Yes, please. We have a question there.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. So I am looking at your perspective over here from a different lens, not from the pure AI startup base. So while you see, most of the global investors are working on backing AI proxies, like rightly mentioned by Ritu ma'am also. So while I'm talking about AI proxies, I'm talking about chip makers, optic companies, power and cooling equipments, and also infrastructure of data centers in space. So this is where the global market is moving towards. So from Indian perspective, where do you think the opportunity would be tapped at the maximum amongst these AI proxies?
Ritesh, would you want to take a bet on that as an investor?
See, I think you can't have anything without the basic infrastructure being there. That's a given. I think the large opportunity, if you ask me, is also an implementation. What we don't realize is AI doesn't implement itself. You need a team of people who understand business processes, who understand the nuances of the industry to implement it, right? So it's the old gold trail. Do you search for the gold, or you invest behind spades and shells? I think as far as we are concerned, we are right now looking at the spades and shells part of the business, because the application layer is still very nascent and it's taking time to develop. For the infrastructure part of it, as everybody else has said, you need seriously long-term capital, because that's literally it's an infra play. It's not so much a private equity or a VC play. you can play derivatives of that, but you can't simply, you need capital which has a 10-year window, 15-year window to do all of that. So I would play the services part initially, the application part. As an investor, I would play the services part initially and the application part subsequently. And the infra part, honestly, like I said, I'm not the right investor for it. You need pension funds, you need sovereign money, which has long-term longevity to hold that.
Thank you. Probably, if any more perspective, just, because this is a question which I'm sure a lot of people might be having.
I just want to add that I'm sorry, I don't agree on this patient capital bit, because the world is moving, so we can be as patient as we like and we will lose the game, right? So I think people have to accelerate the capital flows here. And there's two legs to it. There's an infra play and there's an innovation play, right? So everything doesn't have to take 10 years to get innovated to get there, right? But everything does need the capital to get deployed at scale. So, you can have innovation happen much, much faster, and you're seeing that happen, right? Much, much faster, right? I think the capital on the dissemination and making sure that that gets out as fast as possible, because that is a capital play to get it out to everybody, is what it is, right? To make it, Apurva funding, half of it is debt or whatever, that is absolutely necessary to make that available. But that innovation and making that more capital efficient, I think that is still an opportunity that, as India, we're very good at. We've always been good at whatever our UPIs or our COVID vaccines, etc. And I think that's the opportunity we sit on, right? That you can play the innovation game, and then the spread out and the scale of it is obviously undeniable in a country like this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hi. Just a quick question. I heard the phrase patient capital, long-term capital quite often. Two questions. Where is that in India right now? What is the quantum outside of government sources? Just rough estimate. And what would you define as patient capital and long-term capital?
Sorry. So, there is a lot, rough estimates. There's about $60 billion of dry powder waiting in India to invest. A lot of it is sovereign capital, a lot of it is pension money globally. You speak to some of the global pension authorities, they'll tell you, listen, we are 10% allocated to India. We don't have the capacity to invest more. We have the capacity, but the Indian ecosystem should have the capacity to do more. So unless and until, that is long-term capital. That's capital without an end date, right? So when at least the panelists here are talking about patient capital, it's talking about capital which has a longer-term horizon onto it, and in some cases it's required to do that. So the estimates, while like I said, it's guesstimates at this point in time, but there's enough and more dry powder on the sides. As a country, we need to build capacity to absorb that capital. That is missing.
Thank you.
So if there's no more question, I think we can close the session. I think thanks to all the panelists to make this quite insightful and come across different sectors and perspectives. And I think we learned a lot in terms of whether AI is disrupting everything, is India on the right track? And I think it's heartening to hear a lot good things about where we are on our journey. And I think we are on the right track to sort of meet that $500 billion over the next decade. So thank you all.